What's up, everyone? I'm going to, before I get started, show you how I set up my SketchUp documents. Typically, I would start with the architectural template, but this might be helpful for some of you that are new to SketchUp and would like to have an easier process of like kind of understanding your meshes and the operations that you're doing inside of your project. When I open a new project, the first thing that I do is go over to materials and click on the home icon. For you, it might be the brick if you're on Mac. And I right click and I delete every single texture or color that's in my model. And I just hit enter. It's going to ask me this material is being used. Do I want to replace this with the default? So I hit enter to say yes. And what this does is it removes all colors from the default character model that's here as a reference. And I'll usually keep her here. The next thing I'll do is go under the styles tab, click on edit, and then under the face settings, I'll change the back color to red. All right. And let's say if I draw a rectangle, the bottom should be red. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll go File, Save as Template, and then I'll save this as Architectural 2 with the description being no colors, no materials, and um, what did I change? And a red back color. All right, so I'll use that as the description. That being said, I'm going to go File, New, not save this, and I'm going to draw a rectangle. We'll do, let's say, 10 feet by 10 feet. I think I messed something up. Let's see, 10 feet. There we go. And I'll triple click that. We'll move it over. Hold down or tap on Control so that I can duplicate this face. Then press P on my keyboard. I'm going to push this up 10 feet. Alright, then I'm going to double click the other face to do the same operation. I'm going to triple click one cube, right click, make it a group, or I have a shortcut built in where I'll do Control G and it'll automatically group that. You can go over to, let's see, I think it's under File. Let's see, let's find out where that is really quick. It's Preferences, Tools, Window Preferences, and Shortcuts. So Group, Make Group. I have that assigned to Control G, and I'm not sure why it's not showing up here. But you can set up some shortcuts to make your life a little easier. Control G is what I use to create groups. Control Shift G is what I use to ungroup items. So Control G, that's now a group. If I double click into this group, I can use Control Shift H or actually Shift H for me to hide the rest of my model. Control Shift H to hide similar components. Right, so if I make this a component, and let's just call this box, and then I duplicate this over, if I double click and edit, Control Shift H should hide those other components that are similar. So escape, let's just do another duplication. Double click one, Control Shift H to show those other components. Shift H to hide the rest of the model. Control Shift H again to hide those other components. All right, so just some easy tips right there for you. Now, what I'm showing in this example is the difference between a solid object and a solid hollow object, which some people get confused and they assume that an object that's solid is hollow, but this, you can assume that this is filled in space. Like if we cut down a block from a tree and then cut that tree trunk into a cube, let's assume that all of this red that we see is actually solid wood and you can't put water in here or anything. This is technically a solid object. All right. And that's where, some people may have the face style X-ray turned on, or let's do edge style back edges. Some people have the back edges turned on and they think that they're looking at a hollow object, but I'll show you the difference between a solid and a hollow object. So if I take this, control copy, and then I'm going to do control, actually S to scale. I'm going to hold down control so that I can do a uniform scale from the center and just make it slightly smaller. And then we're going to double click this, control A to select all. I have a shortcut that I use to reverse all the faces. We're going to do control R to reverse those faces. And then I'll do a control shift V to paste my new box in my original box in its place. Okay, now let's double click this, grab all of these faces, control X, then go into this group, control shift paste, and now that is a hollow object. This one to the left is hollow and these to the right are solid. Let me show you the difference by adding a section plane here on this side of my cubes, and we're just going to call this cut 1, and then I will go to view section fill. We're going to uncheck section fill, and then I'll move this section plane, let's just say in this direction, and now you can see the difference. If I turn off, if I go into view, edge style, and turn off back edges, or I can just hit K on my keyboard, now you can see the difference. This cube to the left is actually a hollow cube because there is an interior. There are interior walls. You can think of this like you're the inside of a bedroom, right? You're inside of a bedroom. If let's say, oh, I did a section cut. So real quick, I'm just gonna move this here, and let me grab this lady and move her, let's say from here to here, and then let's move her up. Let's go inside of this cube to put her floor level, and then we're going to move her into the cube, and then we'll move my section cut back. Okay, so this cube is a hollow object, all right, because there is an interior wall. These cubes to the right are actually solid objects. Okay, there's nothing, there's no space or air in there. You can't pour water into those cubes because it's not rendering in SketchUp to be a solid object, but it is in fact a solid object. All right, think of a plastic toy that is heavy. Think of an ice cube. An ice cube, if you melt it, it's not hollow in the center. Okay, so with solid objects, you can cut other solid objects out of them. So let's move this cube here, and then let's do a Boolean operation. Let's go to Tools, Solid Tools, Subtract. All right, now I cut something out of that. Now I don't know if this is going to be registered as a solid object because I might not have designed it properly, but we're going to try it anyways and see what happens. So let's move this cube here and inside of it a little bit, and let's do a Tools, Solid, Subtract. Alright, that worked. So now if I delete my section cut, you can see that this cut exposed the interior of this hollow cube. This cut didn't expose anything but the fact that this is still a solid object. Alright, so when you do a simple rectangle and then a push-pull operation, That is a solid object. It is not hollow. Although if you delete one face, it appears to be an interior. That The reason I changed my back face color to red is so that I can see when I'm looking at the interior walls of a solid object. All right. Now you see the difference. If I delete a wall from inside of this let's say this room, now you can see the inside of, let's say, this solid wall that was there. All right. You should not be able to see through that object if you delete one face. All right, if that makes sense. I hope it makes sense. As you can see, there's thickness here and here. Okay, so if I delete those two, you can see inside of that wall. You can assume that that is like wood, right? Or plastic, or, if this was an ice cube, that would be frozen water. Okay, so I hope that that makes sense. If you have any more questions about the difference between a solid and a hollow object or anything else related to SketchUp, please let me know. I am on Reddit as Grow Memphis Agency. Take care.